1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When I can make it, I can't do it every day, but I'm doing my best on that department. Welcome to the program along YouTube and all of our subscribing platforms here. And we're joined by Charlii Sebunya from Great Britain, commentator, documentary producer. He's sort of doing a great series of on-street interviews. Talk about that, Charlii. What's going on?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Charles, for having me on your show. We are on a platform, and the show is called styleculture.tv, which is available on Amazon and Roku and worldwide. We have global distribution, and it's brought to you by Addy Media. And we cover everything from pop culture, news, current events, the whole spectrum. Anything that's happening, we are covering it. And it's brought to you, myself, Charlii Sebunya, and the great Adriana Kirgi.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you are getting into some pretty controversial issues here in your street interviews, and I'm going to just take a look at some of the things that are brought up here by your producer, by your publicist. It says here, many members of the Black community have decided not to get vaccinated for various reasons. By requiring these, okay, so first of all, let's talk about that. Why do you contend, and I think accurately, and I think that's true in the United States as well, that many members of our Black community are not getting vaccinated?
Well, I think that in America, the reason why a lot of the African-American population, and I can't speak for all of them, are rather apprehensive of getting vaccinated, because I think it all stems from the Tuskegee Project. For the viewers or for the listeners who don't know what the Tuskegee Project is, research, pick up a book, go online and research, and stop looking at things like a 60 or a 30-second video on Instagram and believing and taking that it's gospel. Yes, social media can play a good part in educating you, but it's nothing better than actually researching for yourself and finding out other people's synopsis or evidence that shows you something different from what maybe the left is showing you, the right or liberal media is showing you. So I personally believe that the numbers are going up. People of color, Black people or African Americans or whatever the usual title that they're giving us at the moment, I feel the numbers are going up. And I think it's very clever that the mass media is pushing out these numbers, because lo and behold, back in the day, we were divided by race, we were divided by religion, we were divided by politics, whether you're Democrat or Republican. They're Republican or conservative, they can't be invited to Thanksgiving table. And now what's very clever is they're dividing us between the vax and unvax. And I want to let your listeners know that I am vaccinated. I am vaccinated, and I'm not against vaccines. What I'm against is the mandate, and it's the 14th Amendment in America. No government should dictate to you what you should put in your bodies. So that's what I've seen lots of people in America are against. And it's left and right, purple or whatever, from both parts of the aisle that are against the mandate.
It is. And I mean, I also am vaxxed, and I'm against the mandates. And you bring up the very important point about resistance among the Black community in the United States, not just the Tuskegee experiment, but we could look at the Margaret Sanger's Negro Project in 1939. She was closely allied with the Nazis, and she wanted to cull the Black population because she referred to Black people as a dysgenic race. And so she set up abortion clinics.
Abortion clinics in the majority
in Harlem. And also, instead of going right out and selling the idea to Black people, because she knew that wouldn't work as a white woman, she used Rockefeller-funded money to pay off Black ministers and corrupt them and get them on board. I mean, it's a really interesting story. And even
I've actually read up on the whole abortion clinics and was shunned upon and shocked upon. Granted, styleculture.tv, we do like amazing content, but I like normally lock myself in my bedroom and I research and I research and I research people, like I researched you, Charles, before coming on. and
Sure.
looked at your past and present stuff, so that when I come on and I interview these people that you've seen on our platform, you have more than just saying what's the inspiration behind your collection, because people globally have been through this pandemic and it's hit people really, really hard. And I think the viewers and the listeners, they don't really care about the inspiration behind somebody's collection or the film. People want to know more about people now. And that's the reason why we cover these 4 questions, and we hit really, really, nervous, questions like 9/11, like Afghanistan, like Roe v. Wade, the abortion, and the vax mandate, because I think it hits home more, and it's got more of a sense of giving content to people worldwide, not just in America, but worldwide, that people are going to be interested in.
Well, Charlie, you're doing what we used to assume journalists do, which is going and digging and doing investigating and going wherever the story takes you, instead of, and you're coming across some of the censorship now, which of course is becoming international, and it's becoming electronic, and it's an issue that I think is coming up. I also just want to add to the business of the resistance by the Black community. Apparently, even recently, and I don't want to go too far into this because YouTube will ban me, but Dr. Anthony Fauci has been, there's evidence that he was involved with experimenting on minority children in New York as recently as 2009. So, using different, modalities of drugs. So, this is a real issue, and I understand it completely on the part of the Black community. I completely get it. You don't know what they're doing, and there's a lack of trust. Now, having said that, as I mentioned, I'm vaccinated. I'm okay, so far. I don't know how I'll be next week, frankly, but I'm okay so far.
You're strong, Charles. You're a strong man.
Well, who knows? I don't know what the deal is. I'm not saying that anything negative about it. I did it because my family, my wife in particular, let me know in no uncertain terms that I was to be vaccinated. I may not have otherwise been, quite frankly. All right, so
a happy wife is a happy life.
Yes, indeed, and I'm grateful for that. So you said,
I know I totally understand what you mean, and the media, Charles, you and I both work in media. The machine is very clever about pushing out these numbers, and again dividing us more, in the divided states of America. And they keep pushing this narrative about blacks. Before it was the blacks were the most hard hit. And they keep saying that the blacks are the most unvaccinated. You've seen the viral video of that policeman who has served in the police force for over 20, 30 years. And he went on his last plea and he said, over and out, I'm leaving, because he was refusing to take the vaccine.
Yeah.
When you go to styleculture.tv, you can see the protest that we filmed and covered, that it was against the vax mandate in New York City. And we had people from both sides of the aisle.
Sure. It's
Democrat, Republicans. We had the suburban women coming from upstate New York coming down. So the machine is very clever at pushing out blacks.
Oh, it's totally across the board. I think probably the biggest sector I would predict that's going to be on the vanguard of the anti-vax mandate movement is going to be white suburban mothers. When they start,
because they're coming after their children.
Yeah, exactly. And, Black Lives Matter, which is an organization that I generally don't agree with, I think that they're quite right in this particular issue, and that they're opposed to the mandates. They say it reminds them of Jim Crow, that you have situations where a Black person who has not been vaccinated is being denied entrance into a business or a restaurant or anywhere else. It's like the old Jim Crow days. It brings back those questions. So, this is something that, as you say, they're dividing us down the middle and creating a dialectic of conflict between two groups, which is something that the establishment has done going all the way back to the days of the French Revolution, I suppose.
Totally. And like you were saying before, and it's not just people of color that are getting denied. As you know, I'm coming to you live from New York City. I live in Manhattan, And the mandate is, if you're not vaccinated, you can't come into, buildings. You can't dine, wine and dine. You can't.
I'm having it happening to me. I mean, I was vaccinated, but people, they want to see my passport. I mean, it's very troubling.
From September, September going forward. And, we cover events, and it says on the email, it says on the press release that it's only for vax-only staff or vax-only guests, vax-only celebrities, so it's just like a way of life now in New York City. You have to present your vaccination card regardless of your color. So I think it's that's the way that we're moving forward now. And like the listeners, like I said from the get-go, I'm vaccinated. What it is that I'm against the mandating it. I'm from London. My mum and dad are from Uganda, East Africa. Mm-hmm. When we were all in boarding school, every summer holidays we were made to go to Uganda. So now that I'm older, I know where I'm from. I know my history. When I go to Uganda, they call me a different name. They don't call me Charlie or Charles. They call me by my African name. So when going to Uganda, we had to have typhoid, malaria, tetanus. When I worked in India, I had to be vaccinated. I've worked in Israel, Tel Aviv. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I'm used to getting vaccinated. So what it is that so many people are against being mandated having a vaccine, and now it's going to the children. And we did a lovely heartfelt interview with a lady who, yes, she got vaccinated because she's got to put food on the table. She doesn't have the she doesn't have the luxury of being like Adele and being in our house, which I love to bits, and singing her album a cappella. She has to go out and earn. So she got vaccinated, which I love Adele. I love her. She's British like me. But what she did be hurtful about, and she broke down in tears, is when she got the email that her daughter's got to be vaccinated to go back into education. So that's when, people were, being hurtful and shunned upon.
Well, I think that people are drawing the line with children. It's because the virus is not having a major impact on children. I think that there's probably been close to zero numbers of children who have died from this virus, less numbers than a conventional flu. And the other thing I don't understand, and I mean, I hope I don't get in trouble with the YouTube censors for this, but it's sort of an obvious observation. And that is that we were told that the vaccine, even with the vaccine, you can still spread the virus. I don't think there's any data that suggests that you would spread it any more or less than people without the vaccine. In fact, some people say you might even spread it more because the vaccine actually puts the virus into your system. And yet that's why we're told that we have to continue to cover our faces when we're out in places. So then what the difference does it make if someone was vaccinated or not? It seems to me to be, you're told that if you get the vaccine, you won't get extremely sick and die. Okay, I got the vaccine. That's why I did it. But as far as like spreading it, it doesn't seem to matter whether you've had the vaccine or not. So why are they making this? It doesn't seem like this idea that if you're unvaccinated, you can't go in a place. That doesn't make sense on the surface.
And it's amazing because whilst I'm here being recorded with you, that's why I keep flicking like this. I'm getting so many notifications about vaccine, because the cell phones, the iPhone or the Samsung is listening to our conversation. But at the end of the day, it was very interesting. Loads of people were protesting about it. We've just come out of a global pandemic, and it got to the point, especially from September, where you just had to be vaccinated because it became a mandate. So in order to function in society, you had to be vaccinated. So the numbers are up in the African-American community that they are getting vaccinated. So I just think that the media is very clever, the machine is very clever about putting out those numbers just to divide us even more. So when you go for an interview to finally get that job to go back to work, or you sit on the subway and they see a person of color, they immediately are programmed to move away or ask about their vaccination because they've been programmed to think people of color are not vaccinated or apprehensive, which is again just a sign of ignorance. People are getting vaccinated, and I just think that that topic now is just getting rather redundant, rather fatigued. People are getting vaccinated, but it's just a way of dividing us more and getting us fighting amongst each other and saying to us, look over here, look over here, look over here, fight amongst each other about vax and unvaccinated coming up to the holidays, you know, and getting us to look over this way because something else is happening over there.
No, you're right. It's a gigantic distraction.
Classic.
And I think that you make the point that a person has a right to choose whatever happened to our bodies ourselves. A big book in the 1960s, a feminist, mainstay of feminism, and that given the fact that the virus can spread whether you've had it or not, seems to me to be nobody's business whether a person's vaccinated. And also, it violates not just HIPAA laws in the United States, because you're not really allowed to ask a person their medical condition. You can't ask, like when a woman is being interviewed for a job, you can't ask her whether she's pregnant. You can't ask a person whether they have cancer. This is sort of proprietary, it's personal.
Yeah.
And that those laws emanate from the Nuremberg laws, which came about after World War II, when you had forced medical procedures done on Jews and on others in the concentration camps of Europe. So, the idea was that it was banned internationally through the Nuremberg laws.
Yeah.
And the idea that now we're going to have this implemented. Now, the good news in the United States, quite frankly, is that you now have a federal judge who has thrown out the mandate that says that the federal government cannot mandate vaccines, at least as of now. Now, some of the states are still doing it.
Yes.
Apparently, even some of the municipalities are doing it.
Yes.
But at least it's not going to be like a national directive where everyone has to put this needle in their arm by law, which to me seems extremely troubling.
And the thing is, even though you have said that, again, people don't do their research like you and I have prior to talking.
Exactly.
People don't do their research and they just see the sound bites and they think by law you have to be vaccinated. It's the law now, and that's what people.
Right. Well, that's what they're implying. The establishment,
and that's what people are saying. So therefore, that they're and I totally get it. In America, it's private property, so you have the right to say to somebody going into Home Depot or whatever or Starbucks, you can't come in unless you're vaccinated, because those places, they should be giving me a check for this. Those places are, it's private property. It's your house. You can say over Thanksgiving or Hanukkah, I'm sorry, but you can't come to the table unless you're vaccinated because you're going to hurt Aunt Melva, or grandma or grandpa, you know what I mean? So it's your right to do that. So we're pushed between a hard rock and, in a place.
Right. That's right. And also, again, the irony is that you're not going to hurt Aunt Melva anymore with or without, because whether you've had it or not, you're going to carry it or you're not going to carry it. And there's no evidence that, at least not as of yet, that people with carry it any more or less than people without it. It also bothers me, quite frankly, and again, this is a taboo subject for YouTube, so I'll be very euphemistic.
Yeah.
We have not had much research done on conventional medications that can treat the coronavirus.
Yeah.
We know which ones I'm talking about, some of
Yes.
which have been taken by some pretty famous people and very successfully. In one case, this particular medication, which begins with the letter I, I'm not going to mention it, has, according to Indian reports, basically almost eradicated the virus in Uttar Pradesh, which is one of the biggest, most populated provinces of India.
Yeah.
And so you have this particular drug, which is over the counter, I don't know if it's over the counter, but it's inexpensive, being used by nations all over the world. Nigeria, I think, uses it, and successfully. It's in terms of stemming the spread of the virus. And yet in the United States, we're not even allowed to talk about it. I can't even mention it on this station.
Yeah, because it just gets ripped down.
Yeah, it's very strange that this would be the case. I have no idea why that is the case. I have my suspicions, which I'm not going to share, but at least not on YouTube.
Yeah, but it's in your book. So listeners, go and get your book. Go and get your book.
It is. I do mention it in my most recent book. By the way, just thanks for mentioning that. My recent book is now published. Research. Well, hey, we have to get an author likes to toot his horn a little bit. It's Sociology for Conservatives. I'm a sociology student, and I've published a social theory based on conservatism, which is something that's lacking in the field of sociology. So I'm hoping to open a school of thought. I'm actually a sociology student right now. It's
Yeah.
a fascinating subject, but it's very left-leaning, to put it mildly, always has been. And I argue that conservatism lends itself to a sociological theory because conservatism is the best expression of what's best for human society anyway.
Yeah.
So
I know, and I totally understand what you're saying, and I mean, it's very interesting living in America because, you know, it's in America they're so keen on giving people titles. So many times, you know, you've had, you know, so many people come to high positions in politics, and they're always got to get this title: first this, or first that, or first gay, or first lesbian, or first black, or first Indian. And it's always like, can't they just be employed because they are good for the job? Like, I don't really care what you're doing in the bedroom. It's whether or not you're good for the job, but they constantly give you these titles. And when I came across the waters, I mean, I've been living in America since 2004. I just came with the values that my dad and my mum, and yes, for the listeners who are listening, I do know who my dad is. He's still present in my life. I speak to him every week, and my mum as well. But you're constantly painting with this brush that, oh my goodness, Charlie, you've got to be oppressed. You've got to be, you know, you've got to,
well, yeah, that's
tick all these boxes. And it's like, I don't feel oppressed. Maybe because I'm wearing these skinny tight suits, so my blood is oppressed. But I'm constantly told you've got to be oppressed. You know, you've got to be ticking all these boxes. And it's like, I wish there could be a time when we can do away with these titles and these, you know, pronouns, because all it's basically doing is dividing us more. And when you go to Europe and you see the media or you see advertising, we are painted in a different light.
Well, what's happening, I mean, what you're talking about, of course, is the fact that critical theory, and in this particular case, critical race theory, and there's been other critical theories going all the way back. I cover this in my book on sociology, not to get in a plug. But anyway, it's becoming the mindset of most Americans, and it's also being taught and inculcated in American government and the American military, corporations, municipalities, cultural institutions, and it's basically cultural Marxism. It's this idea that people are to be put into categories, and that those categories have preset conditions. That it looks at people collectively rather than individuals, and that when you teach it to children, it's particularly pernicious because what they're telling a young Black student in school, elementary school, don't study science, don't study math, because that's part of the white supremacist dominated, establishment, and you don't want to be part of that. And they tell a young white kid not to study these things because that way they're part of white privilege. So either way, both Black and white, these kids are dumbed down by this idea. They're told, stay in your place, which is the actual result of it. And also, kids aren't thinking about race. They're forming friendships. They're trying to have a good time. I mean, this is like, suddenly they're being divided by race. This is actually almost as bad as, sex education in schools, which corrupts the innocence of children. We're supposed to protect children from these things. They're going to once they're older, they'll understand these very complex subjects with a more developed intellect and with the more mature ability to perceive them, not as children. I mean, when you do this to children, your children should be allowed to play and allowed to basically learn the basic skills they're going to need to think independently later, not being used as, being subjected to a propaganda soapbox.
Totally, but with the explosion of social media, I don't want to sound like I'm old, but with the explosion of social media, everything is at access, and like commercials, films, and the whole 9 yards, there's been more sexually prerogative and pushing sex to our younger children. So
all the more reason why they should keep it out of schools. I mean, it's everywhere,
So I suppose it is in one retrospect teaching them about sex education so that they know what to do when that arises, because it's so much in their face now, constantly when they're on their on their cell phones. But I suppose, I'm not here to be a mouthpiece for the African American community.
I understand.
And I'm not saying it to you. I'm saying it like obviously to the listeners. And it's like the thing is, as you're seeing, with as you're seeing with the whole political shift in America now, Black people or people of color, we're not monolithic. We're not all thinking the same. And it's really interesting when you see people who are expats living in America who have come from somewhere else, because that's what basically expats means. We have a different look on life and, on life. We're not feeling that we're oppressed, So when you've lived and when you've worked and when you've been educated globally, like a lot of the children have been who parents are in politics or in government, they see the world in a different light. And it's very clever how they manipulate things so that if you've only traveled to Brooklyn and 42nd Street, it's very easy for the media or the machine to program you to think a certain way because all you know is 42nd Street in Brooklyn. So it's very clever. So it's really interesting because when I'm doing work on styleculture.tv, I'm constantly getting emailed or text or phone calls or conversations with people, saying that, Charles, you shouldn't think a certain way or you shouldn't ask that. But, you got to keep in your box because they immediately think you've got to be thinking a certain way, like the president.
People don't like to be told. Yeah, they've accepted a certain body of work and they don't want to be challenged. I mean, they don't.
Yeah, like the President Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black. Like again, you can't have a different train of thought. You can't think a certain way. And I listen to like the left and I listen to the right. I research both sides and then I come up with my own opinion. That's what we were taught in boarding school. That's what we were taught in life. That's what my dad taught me, to come with your own opinion. Read. And it seems to be over here, the media's only happy with Black people if they're holding a mic, taking their clothes off, bouncing a ball or singing or dancing. We've always got to be the entertainment. Yeah. And should someone have a different train of thought, you're shunned upon.
Well, they're terrified over the possibility that the left is, that the Black community won't be staying on the left, voting left, that they might even, heaven forfend, I mentioned this, they may end up voting for somebody like Donald Trump, right? They may, they're terrified over that. So they have to.
But you say, Charles, the left. But I kid you not, I've got it from the right. I've got it from the right as well. It's like, you shouldn't be at this meeting, or you shouldn't be at this members club, or you shouldn't be in these surroundings. Excuse me, can you show me the way to the bathroom? Have you got any more hors d'oeuvres coming out? Because they immediately think I'm the help. No, I'm actually one of the donors, thank you. So it comes from both sides. No,
it does. You're absolutely right. I mean,
because people have been programmed to think a certain, and it's no jest to them. It's no hardship to them. But what it is, it's they've been programmed to think a certain way. You see it in the media. So it's inevitable they're going to be thought that way because they haven't ventured out abroad to see how, because you're mentioning it, people of color are portrayed. Obama was not the first Black president. They kept on saying there've been Black presidents. You'll talk about history.
Yes, there have
Black presidents outside of America. But if that's what's
and there's been Black presidents inside America, like Dwight Eisenhower. But that's another subject. But of course he wasn't openly Black. He tried to hide his Black background. So Obama
there was even Black slave owners. But history doesn't want to emulate that. You're constantly taught that. So I don't think, I've come to the point now, I said to somebody else who was interviewing me, I don't think it's necessarily racism in America. I put it down to ignorance, because when people are ignorant and they don't know anything else, and they're just saying it to me, Charles, we're not being rude, but we've never seen a Black person with a British accent before. So to them, standing in front of them, it's kind of like jarring because the media doesn't show them that. They see Idris Elba. Why is he talking with a funny accent? No, he's actually British. But when he works in America, he has to put an American accent because they don't see it. They don't.
Well, that is ignorance. Yeah, I mean, and that's absurd. But and you're quite right to note that you have this kind of programming going on both left and right.
Yeah,
the only reason I might I might differentiate is because the left is in kind of the high ground of the culture right now.
And
They
tech,
control, absolutely, big
tech
tech,
and China.
they control the institutions of learning, they control the universities, they control the media, they control, in a broad sense. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not weaving a conspiracy theory here. I think they'll be the first to say this. The big networks. And so their particular version and brand of racism which has its own particular type, is much more dangerous because it's much more the one that's part of the state. I mean, critical race theory is now the official philosophy of the United States.
Yeah.
And it's completely contrary to the American ideal, which has not been lived up to by left or right. And that is that we're all children of God. We're all, equal brothers and sisters. I mean, it's not, it sounds kind of hokey even to say this, but that's the foundational principle of the United States.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
And what it's becoming to now is, the divided states of America, because we are very polarized now and very divided, whether it be, like we said now, the new one is the vax and unvaxxed. And, we've got loads of messages and loads of texts and DMs and conversations like, oh, how can you say this? How can you say that? And again, people get the wrong end of the stick. What we're against is the mandate. I'm vaccinated, Charles, you're vaccinated as well. What it is it's, we're against the mandate, mandating people to do this, so I'm just hoping, the next year we're going to be like moving forward, and like, the next thing now, I just couldn't believe it with Mr. Pete Buttigieg saying that the roadways are racist now.
Oh my God.
It's just like, when is it going to stop? Like the roadways are racist.
We're going to all become insane after a while with that. I mean, it's going to drive us literally.
The highways and the freeways.
Yeah, they put up a microscope on everyone and they try to find like a racist gene. Something you might have said something mildly insulting in 1959, and all of a sudden your career is over. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
Charlie,
like the roadways and the highways and the freeways now are racist. And for the listeners who are thinking we're going too far, go and research and see it. He said it. Pete Buttigieg, after he came back from his maternity leave,
right?
He said that was his new plan to do that.
Well, he wants to run for president. He wants to run for president, and that's going to be his. This is the great idea of the Democratic Party leadership moving forward, and the philosophy.
And again,
it's going to backfire on them big time because people aren't buying it.
And it's identity politics. He had to run on one of the main things. He had a number of things underneath his belt. One of the main things is that, again, what's he doing in the bedroom? So he's the first gay. Right. It's like, I don't really care what positions you're doing in the bedroom. Are you good enough to run America? It's kitchen table problems, kitchen table.
And by the way,
issues.
Probably not the first gay either, but that's another story.
There you go. That's another episode. That's another episode. We don't want to go. And I work in media.
Right? Let's not go.
I work in media, so I'm up to my eyeballs with NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. For those who don't understand what that is. So I mean, it was very clever, especially in the lockdown. Events were still going on in this supposedly lockdown. So. I don't know. I'm up to my neck in NDA, so I'm learning the hard way in America how it goes, because people listen to these podcasts and like, excuse me, haven't you signed an NDA that you can't disclose that?
NDA.
So
Okay. No.
So again, he was running on that whole identity politics. Like, it's pocketbook issues and kitchen table issues. Everybody's hurting after this pandemic. As we know, this pandemic was the largest exchange of wealth distribution in history.
Oh, absolutely.
From the middle class up to
all the small businesses were completely screwed over. Restaurants, stores, mom and pop businesses on Main Street. Totally. They're the ones that took the hit.
Yeah. So what's left now is Starbucks and the Apple Store. That's what they personally left.
Yeah, and Bezos and the rest.
Yeah. And
so Charlie, talk about your broadcast and your station. I'm just let my listeners and viewers know how they can reach you and what you're up to over there. Talk. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Excellent. So it is styleculture.tv, and it's available on Amazon and Roku, and we have global distribution, so you can see it worldwide. So just go to styleculture.tv, and then you can click on where you can view it.
Sure.
And like I said, we cover everything from pop culture, politics. We even covered the inauguration of Joe Biden.
Sure.
And we cover events. We interview Caitlyn Jenner exclusive. So you can go onto Getty, our Getty page, and buy it there to see it there. So that is what we're doing. And I drive Adriana, who is my right-hand man. I probably can't even say right-hand man now. I've got to say right-hand woman or whatever the pronoun is. And we go out and we interview people and we provide the whole world with content. And we have a brother-sister relationship. I love her. She's always shouting and screaming. I'm always shouting and screaming at her. Because like I said, listeners no longer want to know about the inspiration behind your collection or who are you wearing on the red carpet. They want to know about more intense conversations, more intense questions. And I'm pushing the bar doing that, you know, with my research and pushing the buttons. And I have the publicists pinching me and pushing me and pulling their talent away because I'm pushing the button and getting the guests to actually think.
Well,
think for once.
Yeah, I'm
instead
looking
of
forward
reading off a press release. No, actually think. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
You know? Defunding the police. Yes, it's very good defunding the police because you got your paid security and you're living in a gated
because you're living right. Exactly. You're not.
You know what I mean? So
you don't have drug gangs shooting at you as you get out of your house in the morning. So for sure, for defund the police for you. Anyways, Charlie,
and then going on about climate change, and you're there, flying your private jets. So, you know, the carbon footprint.
I think that the Glasgow Climate Conference, probably they put more carbon in the air in one day than most average Americans put in their lifetime.
I know. So, you know, I mean,
shots at that, but
and I just, you know, and it's just like that is what people are, you know, it's a kitchen table topics, you know, that people are doing. And, you know, we're hoping that the government is going to, you know, look after us. You know, government tries to come in with their good intentions, but they're just making you feel a little bit comfortable in your poverty, you know. So, you know, it is what it is. I can't even get my words out because
I'm glad that you're taking it on and you're doing it quite eloquently and you're doing a great I'm looking forward to looking at your archive and at your station and following you. So I wish you all the best, Charlie.
Archive, we've got more content coming out around the clock.
Oh, okay. How often do you do the show?
We bang out content every single day. So every single day there is a new upload, which is on our YouTube channel, and it's also on our global platforms. So we have content every single day, and it goes out to Asia. So we work around the clock because they're 12 hours ahead. It goes out globally.
Wonderful.
And it's just Adriana and I, you know, we're the team that makes it happen. And of course, we've got, you know, publicists and distributors worldwide. So yeah, so we go out and we bang out the interviews and the content and bring it to all of you around the world to your homes.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Check it out, styleculture.tv.
There you go. Okay, and I'll put up a link on the on my YouTube channel. And you're doing a great job, Charlie. Charlii Sebunya.
So are you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
so we should collaborate. And thanks a lot.
Yes, please.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care. Oh, happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.